You may have heard of a margin account. You probably wondered what it is, if it's for you, and how it can help you possibly when it comes to trading. There are some really huge benefits and some downsides to having a margin account. And today we're going to talk about the pros and the cons of having a margin account. We're going to talk about what a margin account is. We're going to also talk about some of the things you should be aware of before opening a margin account in order for you to save a ton on fees, and how to day trade without a margin account. So stay tuned for all of this, and just know that I've saved a couple of my best tips for the very end of this video, so make sure you stay all the way through. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Lakeisha Tomlin, a former engineering manager turned full-time day trader, and I help new day traders become profitable within 60 days. So let's get right into the video. And first we're gonna start with, what is a margin account? So you may have heard this terminology all in the interwebs, but basically a margin account is essentially you taking a loan from your broker in order to be able to trade with more capital. So say for instance, if you only have $1,000, you might get additional margin that allows you to trade with $2,000. Or maybe you have $10,000 in your account, and getting margin, you may have the ability to trade $20,000 or maybe even $50,000. It all depends upon your broker, because some brokers have really lenient rules and some brokers have very strict rules when it comes to margin accounts. And if you don't know which broker you should be choosing, well, go ahead and check out this video here, because I talk about how to choose the right broker for you. And then I also share some of my favorite brokers with links to all of those in the description box of that video. So go ahead and check it out. So some of the biggest benefits of having a margin account in the first place is the ability to be able to use more money when trading. And having more money when trading could, although it doesn't guarantee, you have bigger profits, but then at the same time, if you have losses, those losses are also going to be bigger. So just know both sides of that, but the potential for upside can be greater with a margin account. So one of the other benefits, depending on your broker, maybe you don't have the option to trade options in general unless you set up a margin account. I know that's definitely how it was with TD Ameritrade, where basically I wanted the ability to trade options, and the only way I can do options on that broker is by having a margin account. So I set one up. And then on some other brokers, they may allow you to trade options, but you may have to set up a margin account in order to short options. It just all depends on that particular broker. So make sure that you're reading the fine print and you understand fully what the margin account will allow you to do before even selecting the margin option. So some of the cons with a margin account are basically two things. So the first thing is, when you take money from your broker, or you allow them to give you money in order to be able to trade, it's essentially like a loan. So basically with any loan, there comes fees, there comes interest rates and all these other things. So you definitely want to make sure that you read the fine print on that. And then the second thing is basically having a margin call. So a margin call is basically when you don't have enough money in your account in order to cover the loan. So I've had this happen to me, especially on TD Ameritrade. It was at the very beginning of actually this year when I was first learning how to trade options, and I opened up a margin account because on that particular broker, that was the only way that I could trade options. So what I did was open up this account. One time I was trading and it was a loss for the day, and basically at the end of the day, I saw this big red text that said margin call. They also sent me an email, or actually a few emails explaining what it was, and basically put money back into this account, or we will start liquidating the stocks that you already have in here. So obviously that's a bad thing. So first, they can liquidate any stocks that you already have inside of the account. So I already had some long-term stocks inside of that account, and they could just pick randomly which ones they wanted to liquidate at any freaking price. So I definitely did not want that to happen. So basically I just transferred some money into that account by the next business day, the red text was gone and everything was good. So for instance, if you don't satisfy the margin call, then they could liquidate your assets that you already have in that account, and then they may stop you from trading altogether, and then they also block you from taking money out of the account. You can definitely put money back into the account, but they won't let you take any of the money out. So those are just some of the considerations when you actually have a margin call. It seems kind of scary, but it's only really scary if you don't have the money in order to cover the margin call, which is why if you do choose to open up a margin account, be very careful with how much money you actually use of that margin, so that way you don't have this astronomical number, and make sure that you control your risks with stop losses and all these other things, so that way you don't have a crazy insane number in terms of a margin call. Another thing to consider when it comes to having a margin account is how much money do you need to have in that account. Now, once again, depending on the broker, it could vary drastically. It could be a couple $100s to maybe even a few $1,000s in that account. So having that in the back of your mind could definitely help you determine whether or not you want to go with that broker. And if you don't know how much money you should be trading with, then go ahead and check out this YouTube video here where I talk about how much money I trade with, and then I give you some resources on how to determine that best number for you. So go ahead and check that video out. So when you open up a margin account, just know that it's essentially like you're applying for a loan. So just like when you apply for a loan for a car, a house, or whatever, they're going to ask you some information. And they may ask you things about your credit history. They may ask you what your income is, any other cash flow or sources of money that you have coming in. Just basically just trying to get an understanding of your financial picture. And if you've already had an account with them for years, like I did with TD Ameritrade, it was really easy to set up a margin account. All I had to do was just read this super long document, make sure I understood it, signed it, and then submitted it, and then everything was good. So essentially I had a brand new account that was a margin account, but essentially I didn't see any difference outside of what I normally saw inside of the program. It was just basically I had this margin option on my account and I was good to go. So whenever you open up a margin account, just make sure that you really understand the terms and everything that is in that document, because remember, it is like you are taking a loan from that particular broker, and there's going to be interest rates and fees and all of these things that'll be spelled out, and you definitely want to know, so that way you're not paying crazy fees or get surprise fees when you least expect it. So if you want to day trade without a margin account, you have two options. Now the first is basically if you have a broker and they require you to set up a margin account, especially if you want to trade options or futures or whatever, then another option for you is to basically go to another broker that does not require a margin account. So one of the other accounts that I have is actually a Robinhood account, and a lot of you may be familiar with that or maybe not, but in order to trade options on Robinhood, you don't need a margin account, and you don't even have to pay fees for buying options, which is really cool. So if you want to know how to set up options on your Robinhood account, then go ahead and check out this video here, because I literally walk you through step by step everything that you need to do in order to successfully have a margin account on your Robinhood, no matter if you're trading on a phone or on a computer. And the second thing you can do is to open up a cash account. So you may be asking, what is a cash account? And a cash account is essentially a way for you to just deposit your money inside of one of these brokers without using a margin account. And I kind of think of it like a debit account, but just for trading. So for instance, if you open up a cash only account, then you can only use what you put in there, just like a regular debit or checking account, which is pretty cool. And then the other benefit of having a cash account is that you don't have to worry about the PDT rule. If you're not familiar with PDT rule, it's basically a pattern day trader rule that says that you can't make more than 3 round trips, that means buying or selling something within a given 5-day period. So when you have a cash account, you're not subject to that PDT rule. You could do as many round trips as possible because you're only using the cash that you have in your account. Now, one of the cons of a cash account is basically you will have to wait for your money to settle. So what that means is, so say for instance, if you buy something and you sell it in the same day, you may not see that money readily available in your account. You may have to wait until the end of the business day or the next business day in order to be able to use that money. And generally, depending on the broker, it's really fast. I've talked to some people where they said that they really haven't seen any issues with having their cash account, and it's all good because then they could do as many round trips as they want in terms of day trading. So that could potentially be another option for you if you don't want to go the margin route and you don't want to have to worry about the PDT rule and all these other things when it comes to day trading. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give this video a like, and then also hit the subscribe button because there will be more content like this. And always comment below and tell me what you want to see in the future because I only want to make things that people want to see. See you next time.